Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We start from the US, which has told Turkey to scrap its S-400 missile deal with Russia or face harsh sanctions. In an interview, White House National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien said the curbs will pass US Congress with overwhelming support. His comments came ahead of a visit by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to Washington on 13th of November to meet US President Donald Trump. The two leaders are likely to discuss crucial issues that have had the NATO allies at loggerheads. O'Brien said Trump will clearly lay on Erdogan's visit that there is no place in NATO for Russian missile systems. Turkey has not yet activated the S-400 missiles. Washington still hopes to persuade its ally to walk away from the Russian systems. Turkey has started repatriating captured ISIS militants to their home countries. Earlier, Turkish Interior Minister Salman Soylu warned that Ankara would go ahead even if the prisoners had their citizenships revoked. Interior Ministry spokesperson Ismail Katali said an American has already been deported, while 7 Germans will follow shortly. Katali said 3 more Islamic State militants will be sent back today. Turkey aims to repatriate around 2,500 militants, the majority of whom will be sent to EU nations. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says he is open to talks with the world, but his country won't bow down to humiliation. Tehran had previously ruled out any negotiations on the 2015 nuclear deal after accusing the US of bullying. Appearing in the central city of Yazd, Rouhani said he was in contact with the world leaders to produce a solution to the crisis. Rouhani said he won't lose a chance to hold talks that solve Iranians' problems. Iran's tensions with the US escalated further last week when Washington slapped a 3rd set of sanctions on Tehran. The UAE has also called for an immediate dialogue between Tehran, world powers and the Gulf countries to reduce the tensions. Iran and Russia have begun building a second reactor at Tehran's sole nuclear power plant in Bushehr. The project is one of the 2 reactors under construction since 2017 at the Bushehr site, 750 kilometers south of Tehran. Iran's atomic energy head, Ali Akbar Salehi, and Russia's nuclear agency deputy, Alexander Lokshin, launched the new stage. Salehi said after the completion of these projects in the year 2027, Iran will have 3,000 megawatts of nuclear electricity. Meanwhile, the Iranian Foreign Ministry said Tehran does not intend to quit the non-proliferation treaty for the time being. Spokesperson Abbas Mousavi said Iran's steps are measured and taken according to the reactions of the signatories of 2015 nuclear deal. The United Nations has urged Iraq's government to initiate reforms after anti-government demonstrations that have left nearly 300 people dead. These include electoral reforms within 2 weeks, the prosecution of those responsible for the recent violence, and the passing of anti-graft laws. Mass rallies calling for an overhaul of the ruling system have rocked Baghdad since October the 1st. On Monday, the chief of the United Nations Assistance Mission for Iraq, Janine Hannis, met Iraq's top cleric Ayatollah Ali Sistani in Najaf. She said Sistani has stressed that peaceful demonstrators cannot go home without sufficient reforms to answer their demands. There was no statement attributable directly to Sistani. Last month, Iraq's President Barham Saleh proposed an early vote, but the suggestion has been rejected by the political class. Israeli forces have shot dead a Palestinian man during a crackdown on a march in the occupied West Bank. Palestine's health ministry said 22-year-old Umar al-Badawi was killed during a march to commemorate the 15th death anniversary of former President Yasser Arafat. It said Israeli soldiers attacked the march using live ammunition and tear gas. Addressing the march, President Mahmoud Abbas said Palestinians will achieve the independent state of East Jerusalem as its capital. Gambia has filed a genocide lawsuit at the UN's top court accusing Myanmar of carrying out mass killings of the Rohingya Muslim minority. The motion was filed on behalf of the 57 member states of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation.
Gambia's Justice Minister Abu Bakr Tambadou said an urgent temporary injunction has been sought in an attempt to stop Myanmar from committing further atrocities. Both Gambia and Myanmar are signatories to the 1948 Genocide Convention, which compels all parties to prevent and punish the crime of genocide. More than 700,000 Rohingya Muslims fled Myanmar in 2017 after a brutal military operation in the northern Rakhine state. Last year, a UN fact-finding mission said Myanmar's military campaign was orchestrated with genocidal intent against Rohingyas. The UN mission recommended that genocide charges be brought against Myanmar's military chief Min Aung Hlaing and 5 other generals.
For more on this, we are joined by our correspondent, Mia Alberti in Brussels. Mia, please tell us more about the petition filed by Gambia on the behalf of the OIC.
So as you just said, this is on behalf of 57 other countries, so this is actually an international cry against Myanmar. And the question about why is also related to who is behind this. And that's the Gambia's Minister of Justice and current Attorney General. He was part of the Rwanda genocide case in the United Nations, and he visited Rohingya refugee camp quite recently, and he says that he was shocked by what he saw and that he had to act. And today, talking in The Hague, as he filed this lawsuit, he said that it would be a shame for our generation if the world looked at these atrocities and didn't act. So what they are accusing Myanmar of is rape, murder, ethnic cleansing, and many other crimes. So they are hoping that the International Criminal Justice Court will be able to accept this case.
Mia, now the genocide lawsuit has been filed. How will the ICJ proceed on this?
So what they are hoping is, actually what they are afraid of is that Myanmar is destroying evidence of these crimes and destroying the possibility of a future investigation. We know that there have been Rohingya villages that have been destroyed, burned to the ground, witnesses that might have been killed. So what they are asking the international community is to force Myanmar to stop what they're doing right now, to give a chance for a fair trial with evidence in the future. But of course, the question here is that the ICJ actually has no practical jurisdiction to mandate Myanmar to do anything, just to create more pressure. So I think the difficulty will be that even if the court accepts this request for the immediate halt on damaging actions in Myanmar, Myanmar is not actually compelled to follow through with it.
Yeah, can we expect the case to go on to trial stage at the ICJ, and when that can be expected to happen?
So I think that's the importance of this case. If the ICJ accepts this case and decides to sentence against Myanmar, in practical terms, like I said, they don't have any means to impose it, but they can influence more international pressure against Myanmar, the government in Myanmar, and they can also influence the parallel case going on in the International Criminal Court. And they do have the power to sentence war criminals, including for the crimes of genocide. So whatever the ICJ decides can influence and result in a direct sentencing by the ICC.
Mia Alberti, our correspondent from Brussels, thank you for updating us. Now moving on, the US has urged the Organization of American States to oversee fresh presidential elections in Bolivia. Meanwhile, Russia and Mexico have said President Evo Morales' decision to step down yesterday was the result of a coup. In a statement, the US State Department said civilian leaders should maintain control of Bolivia during the transition of power. Morales attempted to hold on to power after winning disputed presidential elections on 20th of October. He was forced to resign after the Bolivian military withdrew its support yesterday. Russia's foreign ministry said Morales' efforts to find a political settlement were swept aside by an orchestrated coup. Mexico has also said Morales' resignation was the result of a coup because of the military's decisive role. Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard said Mexico would offer political asylum to Morales if he sought it. For more on this, we are joined live from Caracas by our correspondent, Mary Trini Mena. Mary, the resignation of President Morales has created a political vacuum. So who is running Bolivia now?
Well, the situation is very unstable for now, and opinions are divided. The decisions right now is in the hand of the parliament. Evo Morales and his vice president Álvaro García Linera resigned during a live broadcast yesterday, but they also said they were forced to do it. What the constitution, the Bolivian constitution said is, with the absence of the president and also the vice president, it is the president of the parliament who has to assume the temporary presidency. However, this is not the case of Bolivia, because the president of the parliament also resigned. Today, in an emergency meeting, lawmakers will receive these resignation letters to make this official and decide who will be the next president of the parliament, and also who will run the country and call for new elections.
Okay, Mena, Russia and Mexico have described events in Bolivia as a result of a military-led coup, while the U.S. is urging the Organization of American States to oversee the fresh elections. So what do you think the role do you expect the Bolivian military to play if these new presidential elections happen in coming days?
They are at risk to be incarcerated in the upcoming hours. Morales and members of the electoral board are accused of committing fraud in the elections that took place at the end of October. Police and military forces, as you said, has a key role in these events, and they say they are in favor of democracy and the rule of law. What they say is they will support any logistic or any authority, constitutional authority, who led to new elections in the country.
Okay, Chile's government has also announced that it will change the constitution in response to the violent protests which are ongoing over there as well. Is its government also at a risk of being forced to step down? Mary, can you hear me? Okay, thank you, Mary, for updating us regarding the political happenings in Bolivia. And it's a time for a short break. I will be back with more news. Stay tuned with Indus News. Welcome back. Indian forces have martyred 2 more youngsters in occupied Kashmir's Bandipora district. Locals say Indian occupation troops martyred the civilians in a cordon and search operation in the district's Lodara area. They said one of the youths was martyred last night, while the second was martyred today. 12 civilians have been martyred last month. New Delhi's curfew and the communications blackout in Indian occupied Kashmir has entered 99th consecutive day. The lawyer of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board has accused India's Supreme Court of ignoring evidence in the Ayodhya case. On Saturday, the court decided the mosque's land should be given to Hindus in a controversial verdict. In an interview, Zafaryab Jilani said Hindus could produce no documents in court to prove the site was the birthplace of their god Ram. He said Muslims were not stopped from praying at the mosque because there was no claim of any idol being present. Jilani said few restrictions were imposed after Hindu idols were found inside the mosque in 1949. He said Hindus only began claiming it as the birthplace of Ram after that date. Jilani said he will file a review petition in the top court and believes the decision will be overturned. Chile has announced it will draft a new constitution and replace the one enacted by a military dictator nearly 30 years ago. A new constitution was the key demand of protesters who have been staging violent demonstrations across the country for 3 weeks. Interior Minister Gonzalo Blumel says the new constitution will be drafted by the Constituent Assembly and be put to a public referendum for ratification. Blumel announced the political reforms after meeting a coalition of right-wing parties who were reluctant to endorse constitutional change. Chile's existing constitution was inherited from the military junta of General Augusto Pinochet, who ruled from 1973 to 1990. Trade unions are scheduled to observe a nationwide general strike later today to press the government to address yawning income disparities. 20 people have been killed and more than 1,000 injured during clashes triggered by a hike in public transport charges on 18th October. Greece and China have signed 16 trade agreements in Athens during a visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping. Under a trade deal, China's COSCO Shipping will invest 600 million euros in Greece's largest port, Piraeus. COSCO plans to turn Piraeus port into the biggest commercial harbour in Europe. Speaking to media after meeting with Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, Xi said the collaboration will produce fruitful results. He said China also wanted to expand its investments in energy, transportation and banking sectors. Prime Minister Mitsotakis said relations between the two countries were warmer than ever.
Our target is mutual, for Piraeus to become not just the largest port in the Mediterranean, but the largest port in Europe. After all, it is already becoming the most vital transit hub between Europe and the Far East.
In Hong Kong, police have shot and injured a protester during anti-democracy demonstrations in eastern district of Sai Wan Hu. Authorities say the man is in critical condition. He is the third person shot by police since rallies began 24 weeks ago. Later, a pro-government supporter was set alight after a heated argument with the protesters. The demonstrations are demanding greater electoral representation and police accountability. But Chief Executive Carrie Lam said the protesters' actions have far exceeded the call for democracy and they are now the people's enemies. She warned protesters that they won't succeed in getting their demands.
Protesters who purposely destroy Hong Kong, your demand will never meet. Your action of injuring innocent people will definitely not help you to secure what you called the political demands. I want to reiterate that violence will not resolve problems. Violence will only bring more violence and hurt our society.
Spain's ruling socialists have won Sunday's general election, but not a clear majority. With 99% of the votes counted, PM Pedro Sanchez's Socialist Party has won 120 seats. Details in this report.
Ever since the end of the two-party system in 2015, Spain has struggled to put together a majority government. For the fourth time in as many years, the Spanish failed to agree on who they want to run the country. Despite winning the elections for the second time this year, Pedro Sanchez is virtually powerless because he could not win the necessary 176 seats. This time, he says he will end the gridlock and build a stable government.
We will act with responsibility and generosity, and my endeavor this time is to put together a government no matter what. We will have a progressive government. Because of that, we will unblock the political situation in this country.
Preliminary results show the right-wing Popular Party is second on 88 seats. Their leader, Pablo Casado, said his party is waiting the Socialists' next move.
First, to be really exigent with the Socialist Party, we are going to see what Pedro Sanchez proposes. And after, we will express our responsibility because Spain cannot continue in a deadlock. That's why the Popular Party, with better results, we are the only centre-right party which can lead the country. We say to Pedro Sanchez that now the ball lies in his court.
Spain has suffered parliamentary deadlock for 4 years, with no one party securing the majority required to form a government.
Romania's incumbent president, Klaus Iohannis, has won the presidential elections first round. Exit polls show Iohannis will face opposition Social Democrat leader Viorica Dăncilă in the 24th November runoff. Iohannis has taken 39% of the votes, followed by Dăncilă on 20%. Exit polls show the Save Romania Union leader, Dan Barna, won 16%. Speaking after the initial results, Iohannis said Romanians are leading the process of changing the country for the better. He needs to win 50% of the votes to avoid a second round runoff. The death toll in cyclone Bulbul has risen to 20 as it ripped through Bangladesh and India. The storm packed winds of up to 120 kilometers per hour, injuring dozens and destroying thousands of homes. Officials said 10 people were killed in India's West Bengal, while 2 others died in bordering Orissa state. In Bangladesh, 8 people were killed, while 20 others have been injured. Officials in Dhaka said the cyclone also damaged 4,000 houses. They said over 2 million people across Bangladesh have been relocated to cyclone shelters. In India, the air quality of New Delhi and nearby cities has returned to the hazardous level. The presence of particulate matter in the capital was recorded at 358 on the air quality index. More about this in this report.
People are suffering from respiratory diseases as a thick blanket of smog continues to engulf the Indian capital. The US Embassy says the air quality in other cities including Gurugram, Noida and Ghaziabad has reached the same level. Since the Diwali festival last week, New Delhi and its adjoining cities have been grappling with their worst ever pollution crisis. Residents have complained of runny eyes, a persistent cough and dull headaches that last all day.
There is still smog and I walk with the mask. If I remove the mask, it makes it difficult for me to breathe. There is the problem of itching too, and I also have a cold.
On the air quality index, any reading above 100 is believed to be unhealthy. Daily bulletins from India's Central Pollution Control Board suggest some areas of Delhi experience an AQI well above 900.
India Gate is known for morning joggers, but it's been silent here for the past couple of days. I just pray to God that the weather improve so that coming here in the morning gets better.
Air quality in the hazardous or equivalent category may provoke respiratory issues among patients that can affect even healthy individuals.
In Tunisia, women suffering with cancer dazzled on the catwalk at Tunisia's first ever fashion show for cancer patients. Organizers say the event is meant to change misconceptions about the illness. More in this report.
Fitted in vibrant tunics, 10 cancer patients were serenaded by a violinist as they strode and swirled around the runway. Showcasing their outfits to the audience in a 20th century Tunisian palace, patrons were there to lend support. The event was organized by Rotaract Tanit Cartridge Club to boost patients' confidence.
We all know that women who undergo chemotherapy are tired. They lose their hair and their eyes are tired because of the side effects. So we want to get them out of that phase. A special day just for them, where everyone can watch them and see how beautiful they are.
They smiled as patrons cheered. Cyrene Khimisi is receiving treatment for the illness. She wants to change the way people see cancer.
I want to send a positive message. I want people to change the way how they see cancer because it is not fatal if we know how to deal with it and how to recover.
Tunisia's health ministry estimates the number of cancer-related deaths at approximately 10,800. It lists cancer as the second major cause of death, with 1,500 women diagnosed with breast cancer in the country.
In Los Angeles, the co-living market is luring millennials and Generation Z to live in pod housing with 5-star amenities at extremely low prices. Ambitious young people moving to the city at the start of their careers are swapping privacy and comfort for a cheap 30-square-foot sleeping pod. This report explains why.
It's taco night and around 50 people are eating together in a communal space at the Upstart Creative Living in Los Angeles. Among the diners are would-be rappers, dancers, sculptors and actors from the US and abroad. 26-year-old hairdresser Kay Wilson has just moved here from Pennsylvania. She says she's lucky to find an affordable place to live.
How could it be? You know, it's like literally everything I need to be a new person in a new city like LA, where, you know, there's a lot going on. So I decided to just give up my privacy. I sold all my belongings and I moved here to be in this pod.
The Upstart is a cross between a college dorm and a luxury hostel. They contain a single bed, a rail to hang clothes, and compartments for shoe storage. The only problem is the sleep space inside a pod measures 3 square meters.
There's no time to do anything in here but sleep. So when I come in here, I've said I'm getting the best sleep I've ever gotten because I actually come in here and then go to sleep. I'm not up late night snacking, watching Netflix. I'm just going to bed.
Jeremiah Adler, the founder of Upstart, said each capsule cost roughly half the rent of a studio apartment in Los Angeles, one of the country's most expensive cities.
And so the idea is, we always want to be about half the price of a studio apartment. So it's about $750 a month. That includes a place to live, all the amenities, all the activities, all the classes, and the tacos.
This economical capsule living concept is catching on in other expensive cities, including New York. But for many, this type of community is only a short-term solution.
Business updates coming up next, right after a short break. Stay tuned with us. The annual Singles Day shopping blitz at China's e-commerce giant Alibaba has topped $24 billion in less than 24 hours. It is a 25% increase in sales compared with the last year. Singles Day has been promoted by Jack Ma since 2009 and has rapidly grown to become the world's biggest online sales event. Called Double 11, the festival's name comes from the calendar date November 11th. Last year, Alibaba's sales left Cyber Monday sales in the US far behind at nearly $8 billion. Alibaba says it expects over 500 million users to take part in this year's festival, 100 million more than last year. It also comes at a crucial time for the company, which is looking to raise some $15 billion with a share sale in Hong Kong this month. China's Jingye Group is set to announce a rescue deal to buy British Steel for $90 million. Earlier in May, British Steel was put into compulsory liquidation following consistent losses. The closure would have jeopardized 5,000 jobs in northern England and a further 20,000 in the supply chain. British Steel's previous owners, Agreeable Capital, walked away, saying Brexit concerns had muddled future profit predictions. Stock markets in the US and Europe are trading lower because of the dampened expectations about a trade between the US and China. Investors have also been discouraged by escalating political unrest in Hong Kong. All the three major Wall Street indices have shed about 1/3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite hit all-time highs last week. In Europe, London's FTSE 100 index has shed more than 0.5%. Frankfurt's DAX index is also down a fraction, with the CAC 40 in Paris is marginally higher. Time to check out the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news.